That's it. Quarter note equals 92. I'll count 2 bars. Come in at the end of the second bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, ready, play. Alrighty, there you go. Okay, so now that you've heard a run through of the Etude, let's talk a little bit about it. So it's in G major, and the markings in it, the fingerings and the bowings are very specific, they need to be done. You'll see on the part that GMEA sent that it says edited Rachel Barton Pine. That means that they really want you to do those fingerings and bowings and dynamics that Rachel Barton Pine put in the music. Rachel Barton Pine is a very well-known and very beautiful player. So be very careful of the dynamics. Starts out forte, then you have a mezzo forte, a little decrescendo, and then another forte, but you have a lot of subito fortes. Subito means suddenly, like all of a sudden forte, and then subito pianos. Look in measure 16, all right, that's the end of the second line. You'll see that you've been playing forte, and then all of a sudden you have a piano. That's a subito piano. Gotta make sure that there's a difference between those two dynamics. Same thing happens at the end of measure 18, which is on the third line. You've been playing piano, and then you have a subito forte, and then a couple of bars later you have a subito piano again, and then you have a crescendo into the chords on the fourth line at measure 25. So those things are important. So you will also find that you jump between third position and first position a lot. You need to make sure and do that. Let's see, anything else very general? The tempo at 92, I find that at this tempo, it's actually hard to play. A little bit faster would be easier to play. I know that might sound strange, like why is faster easier? But it takes a lot of bow control to play some of these long bows at this tempo. If you wanted to nudge the tempo up just a little bit to maybe 95 or 96, don't think that would be a big deal, and I think you might find it easier to play. That being said, when we do some stuff here, I'm going to keep it at 92. Okay, so looking through the piece, really, besides your intonation, which has to be super good, it's in G major, so if your intonation is not good, if your fingers aren't in the right place, the instrument itself loves G major. And so if you're out of tune, the instrument's gonna sound extra not good. So make sure you're very in tune. And that means that all your sharps have to be sharper and flats flatter, although I don't think we only have a couple of flats in here at the end. Sharps sharper, flats flatter, whole steps wider, and half steps tighter. So for this etude, if you can really think about your half steps being nice and tight and your sharps being very sharp, that's gonna help. All right, but the other part of this is your bow. And there's a lot of stuff with your bow that you have to do to make it sound good. And controlling your bow and being in the right part of the bow and not getting stuck at the tip or in some sort of uncomfortable part of the bow is what you need to work on. So the first place that I see, well, let's just start from the beginning. So I start in the middle of the bow for a quarter note, a whole bow, and you see I'm using little bows for my eighth notes. So one more time. Long bow, little bow, long bow at the frog. Okay. The next bow thing at measure 11, we have so you use little bows for the separate eighth notes, bigger bows for the slurred eighth notes. Okay. Now, if at all you want to pause anything I'm saying and then go practice that, what we just talked about, I really suggest it. Don't listen to this all the way through and just mark stuff that's not going to help. Pause and practice. Okay. At measure 18, 17, 16, measure 15. All right, this is still in the second line. We can easily get stuck at the tip if you don't travel with the bow towards the lower half. So let me show you what I mean. Travel. me show you that again. Push your up bow. So in all of the separate eighth notes that are up, down, up, I'm using the up bows to try to get myself towards the frog so I have room to play the next thing that needs to be played. So let me do it again. I'm gonna do the pickup to measure 15. Push, push, push. Now in piano. Push, push, push. Forte, whole bows. Now light bows. Oops, wrong bowing for me. So here comes my next thing. Measure 19 and 20 are forte. Now when you get to the piano, don't use tiny bows. It doesn't sound good. So the way to play soft is to use very light bows. Okay, so I'm using less bow than I would on my fortes, but I'm not using teeny tiny bows. That sounds like this, and nobody wants to listen to something that sounds like this. So watch again. I'm going to play measure 19, 20, and 21 again. Okay? Now right after that, all right, it's a crescendo. So you start small bows, smaller bows, bigger bows. That's how you make a crescendo. Now set the bow on the string. All right, bow on the string, play, bow on the string, play. That's really important. If you don't set the bow on the string and you just hit the string, your listener kind of feels like they've been slapped in the face. So you don't want your listener to feel like they've been slapped in the face. So I'm going to put all of this together, starting at the pickup to measure 19. So we start out forte, big bows, light bows. Bigger bow, set the bow. Okay? All right. Let's see. Everything coming up is pretty self-explanatory. Measure 34, no, measure 33, there's a crescendo. So the way to make this crescendo is, even though it's not marked, the measure before the crescendo, so I'm talking about measure 35, 40, 32, measure 32, all right? For forte, make a little diminuendo. So you have room to make a crescendo. We do that all the time in music. If we want to be able to have a dynamic obvious, then we do something to make that dynamic obvious. And here in measure 32, we're going to decrescendo a little bit, even though it's not marked in the part, so that we can make the crescendo obvious in measure 33. All right? So I'm gonna start back at measure 31 and show you what I mean. So I'm gonna be forte. And a little diminuendo, crescendo. Nice big bows. Now lighter bows. A note about how to make a really nice forte sound or mezzo forte sound, even piano, but especially forte. If you want to get a nice pretty sound, it's all in this finger right here, this third finger on the bow. It's got to be controlling the bow. That's what gives that really consonant sound. Ba, 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 da, 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 da. If you don't have that third finger control, if your fingers are up on top of the bow, like this, then the only thing you can do to make a big sound is press with your first finger, and that makes a really sound like this. Nobody wants to hear that, okay? Third finger makes a good sound. All right, measure 41. This is where we have a decrescendo, and then all of a sudden a subito forte. All right, we've been piano, then we have a decrescendo, so it's really soft, and then all of a sudden subito forte. Watch what I do with my bow. Did you get that? I picked up and set my bow down right at the frog. Because this forte, these long notes coming up that are forte, these are hard to do at this tempo. This is what I was talking about, where it's a little harder at this tempo. It would be easier a little faster. Ooh, see, I scratched. So again, at measure 41, sorry, pick up the bow and set it down. Now use your third finger to control the bow. Now watch as my bow goes farther out to the fingerboard to play softly. Now farther back towards the bridge because I have a subito forte. Now closer to the fingerboard. Okay, so to make a forte sound, you get as close to the bridge as you can without making it scratch. You don't want it to scratch. And to get a piano sound, you move closer to the fingerboard. And we're talking about like a 1/4 inch here. Everything is, I'm sure you know, in violin is very small, tiny amounts. Okay, moving on. Make sure and measure 62. That you do the same thing that we discussed in measure 11, which is longer bows for the slurred eighth notes, small bows for the separate eighth notes. Watch again. Okay, and then the same thing coming up here, long bows for the dotted half note, small bows for the eighth note. Small to the frog, to the tip. Now here you've got to play these accents. And the accents can be done two ways, and I suggest you do both of these ways. A little extra zing with the bow. Not a big one. It's not, we don't want, again, as an audience, to be slapped in the face with the sound. Just a little extra zing with the bow. Also a little extra zing with your vibrato. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Moving on. Measure 78. Measure 78. I find this to be a really easy place to rush when you have a long bow and eighth notes. It's easy to rush, so make sure you practice with the metronome a lot. Metronome is a super, super important part of everybody's practice and should be there. I'd say at least half of your practice time. All right, I want to do measure 81 through 84, just slowly for intonation, because this is where the intonation can be a little hard. So measure 81. Okay, now if you didn't get it just right, I suggest you take this video back 30 seconds and go over that a few times. That's going to be an important thing to get into. Speaking of intonation, let's continue on with the quarter notes that happen right after the section we just played. So I'm at measure 85. Tight half step. High sharp. Tight half step. High sharp. Okay? All right, last thing, chords. I kind of skipped over the chords at measure 25, except to say you've got to set the bow. All right, same thing at the end here. Okay? You have to put the bow on the string before you pull it. And you can put the bow on the string a millisecond before you pull the bow. All right, it doesn't have to be. Make sense? Okay, when you play these chords at the end, you're gonna play two notes and two notes. Okay, the only difference is you're not gonna stop the bow like I just did. So it's gonna look like this, 2 and 2. All right, and you notice I didn't go down when I finished playing the chord, I went up. So watch again. You see? That's how you get the instrument to ring. Don't do this. That's not gonna work. Move the bow fast. All right? Like a pencil stroke that does this. When you're playing the chords at measure 25, you're also gonna play 2 and 2. You're gonna play the bottom 2 notes and the top 2 notes. All right, you're gonna do the exact same thing. Set the bow, Play 2 and 2 and up, up, up. Don't drop the elbow. You don't need to do that. Not. Okay, violin up. And it rings so much better. All right, that's what I have. My suggestion is play along with the recording. Listen in chunks to this lesson on it. But the main thing I want to tell you is that if you are playing this for your private teacher and your private teacher says something different than me, you go with your private teacher. All right, your private teacher knows you better and knows what you're playing is. Okay, so that one-on-one with them is very important. This is meant as just kind of a help for maybe people who don't have teachers, or really I'm doing this for my students who I also see on a regular basis, but this just gives them something to play along with. So good luck, everybody. And I hope you have fun learning this fun excerpt. I like this excerpt, this Etude.